Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Rob, and today we're going to be discussing the UK spouse visa. Some of our more popular videos are actually on this topic. However, some of the information in there is now outdated, hence we're making a new one. So, without further ado, let's get into it. As you all know, the UK spouse visa is a wonderful opportunity for you and your loved ones to build a life in the UK together. Now, this is a visa that both can be extended and it can lead to further options to stay, such as indefinite leave to remain. So let's have a look at what the actual requirements are for this visa, as well as some of the more common mistakes that people make when applying. Firstly, you must be over the age of 18. Now that is very important for this particular visa. Secondly, to apply for a UK spouse or partner visa, you must be the spouse or partner of a British or Irish citizen or someone who has settled status in the UK. This includes individuals with indefinite leave to remain, permanent residence or EU settled status. You may also be eligible if your partner has refugee status or humanitarian protection in the UK. Now, this goes without saying, hopefully, but you have to be legally married or have a civil partnership that the UK government recognizes. This means that you have to have legal documents proving your union and any other documents proving that previous divorces or other relationships have been resolved. Alternatively, if you've been together for over 2 years but are not in a civil partnership or married, you can apply for spouse/unmarried visa if you have evidence proving your relationship. Now, this one's important because a lot of people get this wrong. You have to prove that you are in a genuine relationship. You can do this by providing messages, photos, videos, tickets from special events that you went to together. Anything that proves that you have indeed been together for over 2 years and are not just doing this to get a visa. If you've lived together, on top of that, you will also have to provide evidence that you have indeed cohabited for the duration of the time that you have specified. But don't worry, if you haven't lived together, that's fine. There are other ways to prove your commitment. However, and this one's important, if you're not living together, you must prove that you do intend to live together in the UK and that the place that you are going to be living in is, up to all the regulations, it's not overcrowded, and it has everything that a genuine relationship couple or married people would want to have. Now, one of the most asked about aspects of this visa are the financial requirements. And of course, you need to prove that you can support yourself financially whilst in the UK. So for this particular visa, you're looking at gross income of at least £29,000 a year. And of course, this doesn't have to come from just one thing. If you have various financial sources, whether that's investments or part-time jobs, being self-employed, having your own business or full-time work, whatever it is, that's completely fine. This doesn't have to come from one single source. However, you do have to have documentation that proves that you are able to meet these requirements. Now, you can also meet these requirements by showing your savings. However, if you're only going to be using your savings rather than your income, you will need to have savings of at least £88,500. Of course, on top of the previously mentioned requirements, there are also English language requirements that you will need to meet if you want to apply for the spouse visa. Now, this requirement has been made so that your partner doesn't feel isolated and not able to actually do anything whilst they're in the country. So most of the time you would need an A1 grade in a certified English language test, but there are other ways to prove it if you don't have that. For example, if you already have a degree taught in English, that could count as your English language requirement. You may also be exempt if you come from a country where English is the official language. However, check the list because not every country is eligible. Also, if you are over the age of 65, then you are also exempt from this requirement. Now, there are a few other exemptions related to your mental and physical status, whether you have a certain disability, but you would need to talk to a lawyer or an expert who will be able to advise you whether you qualify. Depending on where you're applying from, your partner will also need to provide a clear tuberculosis test from an approved clinic. Obviously, this is only the case if they have been in a country that is TB listed. Another thing to remember is that you need to provide as much detail as possible for each of those requirements. Now, too many people, meet the requirements by just doing enough. Now, whilst this is fine in a lot of cases, sometimes this may lead to a confusion if there's a particular piece of evidence that they are unsure about, in which case your application may be rejected or delayed. So make sure that you are providing as much detail as possible for all the requirements that they ask. Now, of course, things change. UK government introduces new rules, so make sure that the information that you have is up to date. I would recommend subscribing and having a look through our videos to see whether there's an updated version of this particular topic. But of course, the UK spouse visa application can be a little tricky. So here are some of the most common mistakes that people make. Number one is not completing the application fully or accurately. So some people tend to skip boxes or forget to include as much information as they need to, or maybe some of the dates don't really match up. This is why a lot of the times it's best to have an expert have a look at your document and see that everything is in correct order before you actually apply. Which leads me to another common mistake that people make, and that's not providing enough evidence. I cannot stress this enough. A lot of applications get delayed or rejected because the government would just need to ask you for more information, more photos, more videos, more messages, more tickets, more documents that you haven't provided, more proof of anything that you have mentioned, right? So again, this is something that we can check for you and see if this application is ready. But if you want to do it by yourself, that's completely fine. Like I said, I would make sure that I have even too much information than not enough when actually applying for this. Now, I wish I didn't have to say this one. However, one of the more common mistakes that people make is actually providing false evidence or lying on the application. I would 100% avoid doing that. It's not only easy for them to spot the lies and mistakes because they will just ask you to provide proof, and if you don't have it, sometimes it's not just the case of delaying or rejecting the application. You could actually get banned from applying in the future. So 100% avoid lying on your application. This same thing goes for falsifying documents. Some people tend to, use some real documents or real data that they have, some real information, but then they'll provide a fake document because they couldn't find the real one. Again, they will be able to tell 99% of the time. So please do not try and falsify any documents for your application. Now, I could go on and on about, some of the other common mistakes that people make. However, we want to keep this video, easily digestible. So let me just finish on a final note, which is that if you need help with anything, remember that we are here. Whether that's just a document check, whether you want us to hold your hand for the entire application and do it for you, we are available 7 days a week and deal with applications from majority of the globe. We've helped thousands of people by now to actually settle in the UK and bring their spouses, their families. So we know exactly what we're doing. So if you feel like you need the extra help, feel free to call us, email us, or DM us straight here on YouTube, and we'll be happy to help. And if there's any other information that we haven't covered in this video regarding UK spouse visa, please leave them in the comments and we'll be sure to help and answer it as best as we can. And obviously we'll be doing videos updating this as things go. So if in a few months time there will be new information, please come back to the channel and I'm sure we'll have a video up updating you on everything. Until next time, thanks for watching.